off on all fine gold, silver, diamond, and gemstone jewelry. Gifts for all occasions. All in-store, in-stock major appliances are on sale. Everything must go. Even the store fixtures are for sale. Only in the Sears store in Wasilla at 1000 South Seward Meridian Road. It's business as usual at all other Sears stores.
Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is a multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode 21 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and the year is going to be 1979. Before we get to it, make sure to hit up markmartinpod.com to listen to all the episodes, at markmartinpod on all of the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And also, make sure to hit us up on all of the different podcast players. Make sure to give us that 5-star rating, subscribe, and catch all of these awesome podcasts chronicling Mark Martin's career. But episode 21, we're going to head into 1979. But Mark, you have a story about 1977 that you wanted to flip back to before we get started on 1979.
Yeah, well, I'll start out with hauler stuff anyway for 79. So that's a big story each of these years. And I have forgotten one of our crazy episodes, if you remember back to 77, that's when we finally got the evolution from the Chevy pickup to the double cab 4-door to the dually ramp truck, and then the first 3 years, and then our fourth year in 77, that's when we had my dad added the double stick transmission duplex, and we didn't have enough brakes. Now we've got all this horsepower, this massive engine, 454, all tricked out and everything, and got the gears, so we got lots of speed, but we can't stop. And so somehow or another, Troy Lynn Jeffries figured out how to get the brake boosters added to this thing, so we could also get it slowed down. Or my dad, I never drove it. My dad always drove. And it seemed like no swing. And then we built that little trailer, probably 8x10 or 8x8 trailer that we pulled behind it, little U-Haul like trailer that had the spare. We had a spare had to carry a spare engine, toolbox, and parts and pieces, and a 55-gallon drum of fuel, and all those kinds of things, because we were starting to do longer races, and we had to have all that stuff. So we built this little trailer to tow behind the hauler, and filled it up with race engines and toolbox and all this stuff. And here's a look at the defense. And it seemed like every time we left to go, we raced Friday night a lot. We raced Friday night at Springfield, Missouri. 200-mile trip, and then spend the night and go to Fort Smith on Saturday night. Race Saturday night at Fort Smith, Arkansas, Tri-State Speedway. Both were asphalt. So we seemed like this was early in the season, and leading up to the middle of the season. And every time we left, the race shop was right next to the trucking company, and every time we left, my dad was late. He was late because he was dispatching and working in the office and everything, and he was always mad, and I mean always mad. He had a terrible temper, and was a scary dude when he was pissed. And he was always late. We were all sitting in the truck waiting on him, and he'd get out there to the truck finally, and we would leave, and we would go to Springfield in 3 hours. It was a 2-lane road almost all the way, and we'd go 200 miles and make it in 3 hours sharp. It was insane the way he drove. He believed in passing cars when you caught them, no matter what, where. Hills, curves, whatever. It was really, for most people that rode with us, it was fairly frightening, but that's what we did. So there was a big 2-day show in Fort Smith. It was an ASA race, actually, I think. And so we left late for that on Friday. It was a Friday, Saturday night show. We left late on Friday and didn't get 30 miles from home. And we caught a Volkswagen going about 50 miles an hour around a curve. And Dad never even checked up, just whipped out the passing. And when he whipped out the passing, here comes a dump truck head on. So he whipped back in and obviously wasn't going to be able to not hit the Volkswagen, so he ditched it. And we went through the ditch, and it was a hell of a rough ride through that ditch and gully and everything. We got stopped and scared us pretty good. And we got stopped, and
Jackson is next.
Larry Shaw said, and we had this guy, Claude Reed, that used to help us too. He was a trucker that worked for my dad. And Claude, he seemed like he would, if you said, boy, it sure is sunny today, he'd say, no, it's dark. It seemed like he was always arguing. So we come to a stop in this ditch, all happy to be alive, and Shaw says, boy, I bet that trailer went for a ride back there. And Claude Reed said, no, it ain't back there. We got out of the truck, and that trailer had broke off at the tongue, stuck in the ground, and went end over end over end. And out there in the woods, there was a racing engine, a barrel of busted fuel, a 9/16 wrench here, screwdriver there. The tools were scattered everywhere, spare parts. You know, it was just a disaster. And I was pissed. You know, it was messing my racing program up for all this ridiculous stuff. So anyway, we got the hauler itself back out on the road. And so the rest of us left and went on to Fort Smith to get ready to practice and qualify. And my dad had somebody come and pick him up, and he loaded up all the parts and pieces out of the woods and everything, got everything loaded up in some other truck, and met us up there the next day with everything. So that was the kind of road trips that we took in '77. They were they would scare most people.
How did you? I mean, with an accident like that, how did you guys recover? Go and pick up the pieces, and how did you recover from that?
Well, my dad picked up the pieces. He stayed back and picked up the pieces and gathered everything up and came the next day. But we just went on. We went on and qualified for the race. We didn't need the spare parts and stuff. We had enough stuff to get us through qualifying on the rig, and we got through qualifying. And it was a 200 lapper. Dad got there the next day with all the stuff and the fuel and everything, gas cans and everything. And I believe we won that race. Certainly believe we won that race, that 200 lapper. It was a big deal. It was a big race and a big deal for us. But that was the kind of trips we made. So fast forward, of course, I have the next year following 77. I have, the podcast for 78. And now we're going to talk about 1979. Well, in 78, I had that 1 year. I had that Ford Cube van and that real heavy trailer. We blew 3 motors up in that Ford Cube van, so wasn't going to do that anymore. So Rusty had a step van, bread truck. He called it Hilton because it had a bunk in it and a sofa behind the driver's seat. And it worked out really, really good. We pulled a trailer and then had all the spare parts in the back side of the step van. So I ordered a new step van with a 454 in it. For the 79 season, and was pretty excited about tricking that out. Put a slipper sofa right behind the driver's seats, and then built a bunk up above the the sofa and was getting that truck all ready. And of course we went and got us another new Howe chassis to build a new Howe car. But in '78, as you recall, I went down to New Smyrna and raced for the championship and won the Speed Weeks, won the World Series of Asphalt Racing. And it didn't pay any money. It cost us a lot of money to go do that. And, I was racing on basically pretty much winnings. We got a lot of free stops. We won the championship in '78. So, we were on a tire deal. We had a reasonable engine deal, although it cost money. We got just about all the parts. Everything that we used on the car was free. So I kind of operated the operation off the winnings. And my dad, bought some of the trick parts and, like the hauler and a few of the things like that. So I wasn't going to waste the money to do New Smyrna in '79. So my plan was to go down there and go to the Oval Track Trade Show, which was at Daytona during Speed Weeks. Back then, now it's kind of the PRI show in Indy. But I was going to go to the trade show and hustle up more deals, more free stuff. And while I was down there, Duke Southard had the Southard School of Auto Racing, which was a driving school that I had actually attended in the spring of '76 when I was moving up to late models from the six-cylinder division. And so I knew Duke, and Duke, now I've, gone on and won the ASA National Championship at 19 years old and was really getting a lot of publicity, and people were making a big deal out of it. So Duke hired me to be one of the driving instructors. So I went from a below average driver, what I thought, when I went and took his school, I certainly didn't show any potential there. For some reason, I wasn't able to shine, to being an instructor and over the course of 3 years. So that was my Speed Week plan, was to go down there, do a little driving instruction, go to Speed Weeks, and go to the trade show. And Billy Harvey was having a big birthday bash down at Fort Lauderdale. And about what I knew about Billy Harvey was he was always fun to talk to. He was always having fun. All his race cars and his trucks and everything were powder blue, real pretty powder blue, and everything that you could possibly chrome was chromed. The jack stands were chromed, the jacks were chromed, the wheels were chromed, chrome everywhere. And he was having a birthday party, so I was like, man, I got to go down there and check this out. So I went down, I saw his place of business, which was his racing thing was fast lane racing, but his towing service, he had a massive towing service where they towed cars, wrecker service and all, and I'm forgetting right now what that was called. But anyway, I went down and saw his towing service and went to his part. Now, mind you, I'm 20 years old, and I'm traveling around in my 1978 Dodge van that's tricked out, really tricked out. It's the Dodge van with the 440 Magnum, all tuned up, headers, four barrel and all that. So I got fender flares, I got big wheels and tires. I got the inside tricked out where one of the sofas in it made down into a bed. So I was pretty well set. So I drove it from Arkansas to Daytona, and then I got ready to go from Daytona to Fort Lauderdale. And I'm just a dumb ass 20-year-old kid. I ain't got no idea how far it is. Dude, it's 5 or 6 hour drive down there. So I got down there, hung out, checked everybody out, socialized a while, got ready to leave to come back home about midnight. And so I head out that 5 hour trip. And for some reason, I ain't got enough gas. I get, somewhere south of Daytona. It's around 5 a.m. and I am on fumes. I finally see an exit, and I see a gas station sign, So I hit that exit. When I hit that exit, I run out. So now I'm coasting. And I managed to coast it right on in there and right up to the fuel pumps.
You're thinking of strikeout pitches. This
Only one problem. They ain't open yet. So I just got in the back.
There's a line drive.
Took a nap. About 7 a.m. they opened up. I fueled her up, drove her on back to the hotel in Daytona. And took me a shower and went out to New Smyrna and did some driving instructions. So when you're young and you're dumb, you got to be tough. So that's what I was, I guess. I learned to get really tough because I was really dumb. The big story of '79 in my eyes, one of the two biggest stories, is my Oval Track trade show. I'm in there working deals, and I see these white Cobra Coil springs. I walk over to the booth, and it's Ray Dillon. And yeah, he says, "Yeah, man, I'll give you springs. You run the decal. I'll give you all the springs you want, all the springs you need." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'll also give you a trailer too, if you want a trailer." And I said, "Okay, yeah, man, I need a trailer. I'm gonna have a trailer, and I hadn't made plans yet for a trailer. So I'll take you up on that deal." And he says, "I've also got a shop.
And the count is 2-1.
If you want to use it, I'll give that to you for free too." And I was like, "Okay." Dang, that sounds good. I can get out of Arkansas, get up in North Liberty, Indiana, closer to where I'm racing. I'm chasing the ASA championship every year, so that'll be centrally located. And I'll get, a chance to get out, out of Batesville, and sort of independent of my dad, who, was probably running pretty wild and crazy at this period of time. I wasn't necessarily approving of the way he was conducting his life and who he was marrying and those kind of things at the time, or who he's marrying, who he's divorcing, whatever. He was running pretty wild. So I decided, yeah, that's a good deal. And he says, "And I also have a house that I'll rent you for $150 a month." Oh, that's perfect. Right next to the shop. That's perfect. So I went home from Daytona, started loading up all my stuff, and I headed to North Liberty, Indiana in March. And when I arrived there, I found a pole barn with no insulation at all, tin roof, and this is what he was calling a shop. There was enough room. There wasn't enough room to put two race cars in it. There was enough room to put one race car in it, and then, kind of sprawl out with your tools and stuff. Okay, that's good enough. The house we rented, well, it was nothing special, but it was okay. How about that trailer? He pointed to the steel rack. There it is in the steel rack. It's all yours. Build it. So Banjo had been, with me, living with me ever since 77, that race at Cincinnati in the fall of 77. So he'd been with me all through 78. And so Banjo and I tackled building a trailer because we had to have a trailer. So we built the trailer. Really nice trailer, by the way. And all we had in it was our labor. And we finished up our race car, cow chassis, put Dillon Enterprise sticker on it because, Dillon was doing all those things for me. Let's see if there were any other odds and ends about the situation. I had one other full-time employee. So I had Banjo and one other, David Lovendahl, my ex-brother-in-law. I had hit him up to come to work for me as well, so he moved up there. So the three of us moved into this 3-bedroom house and got ourselves set up and started getting ready to go racing for the season. It was an exciting time.
You've got to be careful with this guy. He's got great wheels and can turn a single into a
The
double
racing
with
was,
ease.
we built a little bit nicer car than we had in '78. It was lighter, it was better. I was getting better. I was learning a lot. Ray Dillon gave me a key to his shop.
Hey, partner,
I
he
could
may not
go
want to think
in his
about this
shop
game
at
for a
any
while.
time I
It
wanted,
hasn't exactly
use
been
any of
shining
his
all over his
equipment,
career.
tools or equipment or anything that he wanted. I'm sitting there 20 years old, just, I don't know how a guy would have so much, faith in me, but to give me the key to his shop, but he did. And so anyway, by the time we got the race car loaded up on the trailer and hooked to the step van, I noticed that it made the front end of the step van raised up. So I rolled out the cutting torch out there and heated up the front springs so that the front springs would collapse down some, and I got her sitting level. And now my truck is right, brother. That baby was right. I had the headers, the Holly 4-barrel, and everything. Had her sitting right, stance right. New Howe car on the trailer. Everything's going my way. I got 2 employees. They each make $100 a week cash, and I set out to make it all work. Financially, we raced for good purses. We didn't pay for hardly anything, and we were able to have everything that we needed to race with and make the dollars and cents work. We won, quite a few races. Things went well. We successfully defended our ASA championship. And so we won back-to-back, won our second championship in a row, 78, then 79. Toward the fall, Ray had built some race cars, but they were crude, rough. They did not meet my standards. I was becoming a really good fabricator. My cars were really nice. I liked everything that I had, really clean, neat, and nice. Banjo was incredible about that. He was a very, very good organizer and as well. So he and I we just worked the competition completely in the ground. There was no way that you were going to beat us on work. You might outsmart us, maybe, but you would not outwork us. No chance of it. And even though it was just he and I and DL Levendahl, we worked hard. We got it done. So anyway, Ray's been building these race cars. He's had in the back of his mind the whole time probably that I'm going to get Mark, to help me build a world beater race car. So he comes to me and he says, hey, I got this old race car that so-and-so races. I'd like for you to drive it. Okay, we go to Hartford, Michigan for a race, and I drive that car. And it's a coilover car with a stock Camaro front snout, which is everything everybody used back then. And on the way home, we're drinking, and Ray starts in on me. And we want to design a race car. And I'm like, okay. Well, the first thing you got to do is get a damn jig, because we ain't building a bunch of cobbled up mess. So Ray goes and gets him a surface plate and starts getting it ready to build a jig. And we take the known rear suspension, a 3-link rear suspension that we know works really well, and we organize that for rear suspension. We build a tubular front snout and use the Camaro pivot points basically for lower control arms, but we build tubular lower control arms, coilover shocks, and we use sort of known upper A-frame, a known spindle that had been working, on cars. Rack and pinion, got with Randy Sweet, and got racks for them. So we built rack and pinion. And while we were doing that, Ray said, hey, there's not any reason why we shouldn't make this right frame rail straight instead of kicking out to the right. Be a straight rail car. And the roll cage would be, wouldn't go all the way to the right side. It would go about 3/4 over. So it was erratically designed compared to what everybody was running, with exception of Bimco and Frings. They both built tubular front snout cars and coilovers and rack and pinion, but they were not winning all the races. Of course, triple won everything, but everybody counted that as being triple and didn't give the car as much credit as it was probably due. So we built and designed this, and Ray said, I'm going to call it the Mark II chassis because, I pretty much had a huge hand in, how the design was, what the suspension was like. And he was more on the construction side of the chassis part of it. So, our deal was, I build you 2 cars. And it's the same deal as a trailer. Once the car's built, I supply you with all the parts, except motor and transmission. And you put the car together. You and your boys put the car together like you want it put together, hang the body and all that stuff. And all you have to supply is the engine transmission. When you're done with it, you take the engine transmission back and I get my car back. So that was kind of our long-range looking deal where we really wrote a page in the history book. Late 79, we were designing and building this car for 1980. And the 1980 podcast will really get into depth about what we did, what we accomplished, and the amazing things we did. But 1979 was a very important year for me because I became independent. I was able to get out of Arkansas, out of my dad's shop, be able to financially run a business, and make it work, and also make the contact, very important contact, with Ray Dillon, while honing my, fabrication skills. I had already pretty much was all over the tire program with Firestone tires, and managing all that stuff. And then just making all the contacts with people, getting, a better drive, becoming a better driver. All these things were all fixing to culminate for an absolutely earth-shattering 1980. And so I really look forward and I'm excited about going into that, going into that podcast for 1980. But we spent a lot of time going up and down the road, me and the boys up and down the road in that step van with the doors open, slid open on each side. We went through Chicago about nearly every weekend. We'd go up to Wisconsin and race or somewhere, and driving through Chicago on that Dan Ryan Expressway and in that truck with the doors open, just some kids seeing the world from the windshield of a step van. It was an incredible time for all of us, and I know especially for Banjo and I, because we were so young. David Lovendahl was quite a bit older than I was, and he was really an adult. We were just two kids trying to live and compete in a man's world. So that was an amazing time.
So what do you think, what drew Ray Dillon to? Was it, he was a former racer, but what drew him to wanting to help you? Now, it sounds like he understood the complexity of coming from Batesville and running pavement races up north, but I mean, what really tied him to you? Because that's a huge break for you.
That was big. Well, I won the championship, the ASA championship in '78, and I can't tell you enough what a big story that was at 19 years old, being the ASA national champion. I got amazing coverage, and was in Speed Sport News every week and Stock Car Magazine every month, and just had a lot of recognition. And Ray knew that for what little bit of bone he threw me, that would be a big feather in his cap for me to be racing, out of his shop, not his car building shop, but his pole barn out next door. But I also think Ray Dillon was a brilliant guy, super smart, and I think he always had in the back of it. I believe he had in the back of his mind that he wanted to build a car with me, and get his program on the map, because he was more of a, at that point he built really good coil springs, and he built some decent trailers, but they were just decent. They weren't anything special, and he was more of a farmer turning racer than anything, and I just think that he was looking to put his business on the map. He was a smart guy, and latching on to me would be a feather in his cap. It would get him some recognition as well. And after I was there for a race season, he's like, okay, it's time for us to design and build a car. We can build a better race car than you're racing. And I told him, well, here's the conditions. I'll do that, but here's the conditions. I have to be in control of the suspension part of it, the handling part of it. And he was in control of the construction side of it. And it really worked out well, because that way I knew what I was getting for suspension was going to be something that I could fairly relate to, and construction-wise was going to be way lighter and stronger than anything that I'd had before, which was progression. And the coilover shocks was just a major step in the right direction, and rack and pinion steering as well. The thing that I really had to get, the steering wasn't that big a deal, but the biggest thing in this whole changeover for this car we designed was figuring out spring rates. That was my biggest challenge. That was the only nuance that I had, was I was going to have to figure out spring rates. And so we'll get into that in the 1980 podcast.
So to give fans kind of a outlook on the 1980 podcast, that's when the chassis was coming into play, and then it went boom in 1980.
Yeah, we started building it in the fall of '79. Started, got a surface plate, started, mounting the surface plate, and started making some fixtures and whatnot. Ray, they could bend their own roll cages already, so they were able to they were already equipped to do the road cages. So it was all just getting ready to start manufacturing those chassis.
So we're going to get to 1980 in the next episode. Mark, a couple questions before we leave. This is more so just because of interest, but why was your cars, why were they orange and red at that time?
They started out, there was a Camaro that raced before I was racing at around Arkansas. It was number 222, and it was orange. And I liked that car. I liked the number 222, and I liked the orange car. So my first car was number 2, and it was orange. And then the second car, I decided to add some white to it, and that really brought it to life. And so that was my colors. The orange and white race cars were what I had all the way until sponsors dictated something different.
So then you went with the blue number, and then one thing that's like almost like a trademark of your cars back in the day was to have that Thunderbird or that Trans Am look to it on the hood.
Yeah, I like the fire chicken on the hood. I like the look of that. So I did that. I also loved, some of the sign painting that would be back then. You lettered all the cars, painted all the lettering. And Finley Signs up in Michigan did some really cool lettering up there. And so we took the step van up there for him to letter up because it was brand new, and he was getting ready to do some painting. And we all went to Dairy Queen for lunch, and we come back, walk in the shop, and he's got his cup with his Coke in it, and it has, back then Dennis the Menace was, that character was the Dairy Queen character. And he looked at that, and he said, I got an idea. And he went to painting, and that's when he painted that Dennis the Menace, because my nickname was the Kid. So he painted Dennis the Menace with the straw in his mouth and his helmet and uniform on. Look, me walking. It's very, very cool. It was a really cool idea. And then, of course, Finley also did the lettering on the race car. I had two cars in 80, one car in 79, two cars in 80, and I did one in yellowish numbers with the convex look, and then I did one with the blue numbers. And the blue numbers that was money. That was it. So I stuck with that blue numbers through 80 and 81. And then after 81, sponsors dictated. So numbers started to change and colors started to change, and got away from that identity at that point.
Tell us about that household in Indiana. I mean, it's you and your two guys who are just busting your ass outworking everyone, as you said. I mean, what kind of atmosphere was it around that house? And it sounds like you guys were just hammering away working all the time, but I mean, were you getting wild? Were you having fun? What were you doing?
I was in the early stages of, drinking. First of all, I won the championship in 1978. I was just 19 years old. And after the races, all my heroes went to the bar, and I couldn't get in. So, I was kind of left out. Everybody else was grown up but me. So eventually I did get a fake ID, and so I could go in the bars where my heroes were and hang out with them. But I couldn't drink much. I would stand around to be like them. They'd hand me a beer, and I'd stand and hold that beer, sip a little bit off of it until it'd get hot, and then I'd have to throw it out and get me another cold one and sip off. I never could finish a beer like in 78, or really even couldn't hardly drink much in 79. But I was working on becoming an expert at it, and we'll get to that in the later podcast. But at this time, I'm really, really tame. No nonsense. No playing games. It was all business. Banjo and I were both that way. Banjo didn't drink anything to speak of either. So Levendahl was a little different. He'd drink. Well, he's just grown up. We didn't. We worked with him day and night, but as far as personal time, he was more of the adult, thing, and could drink more and whatever. We were not at this point in time. We're not getting wild yet, but that is to come as I grow and mature. And I wouldn't say mature. As I grow and think I'm getting to be a big shot, I become more of an expert when it comes to being wild and being crazy. But at this point in time, no, we were serious business, and wasn't no games I was becoming the guy that Lovendahl nicknamed the Little Hemorrhoid. At this time, because I was extremely demanding. Like, you had to do your shit to the max perfect. You had to work all the time, because I did. And my expectations were really high of people around me, because they were really high of myself. And so the Little Hemorrhoid eventually evolved to Prick of Misery, which he gave me that nickname as well. But that was a little later on. 79, I'm probably just the Little Hemorrhoid.
So, I mean, even to this day, even in I guess you would call it quasi-retirement, you still have that workout.
Well, I have to. That's who I am. I have to. I'm at the shop right now, and anxious to finish this podcast so I can get back out there and tinker on my motor coach. I have to. There, it's just in my DNA. I can't not. I kind of have replaced race cars with my motorhome. It's something that I can work on, and I like projects where I can work on it and make it better. Same thing as I did my race cars. Make it lighter, make a part better, make something prettier, make something work better, or fix something that's broke. But always looking for something to improve on it mechanically or whatnot, organize it or whatever. It's very much like I did my race cars. I'd be lost if I couldn't go hard. Of course, I was in the gym at about 6:15 this morning, and that's all part of my DNA. That's what I do. I'm in the gym every day, at least 6 days a week, and I've got to dig. That's who I am.
So we're going to let you get back to the motorhome, and then we're going to talk about the year 1980 coming up in the very next podcast. Again, race fans, hit up at Mark Martin Pod on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, make sure to go into your podcast player of choice. Make sure to hit subscribe. Give us that 5-star rating. This is episode number 21 of the Mark Martin Podcast, coming up the year 1980.
Thank you for subscribing and listening to the Mark Martin Podcast. Remember to give us a 5-star rating in your app store. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mark Martin POD. The Mark Martin Podcast is a production of the Accelerated Podcast Network.
Sears announces the Wasilla store is closing forever. Millions in inventory must be sold, including all fashion clothing, tools, bed and bath, housewares, sporting goods, and more. Save 70% off on all fine gold, silver, diamond, and gemstone jewelry. Gifts for all occasions. All in-store, in-stock major appliances are on sale. Everything must go. Even the store fixtures are for sale. Only in the Sears store in Wasilla at 1000 South Seward Meridian Road. It's business as usual at all other Sears stores.
Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is a multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode number 20 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and we're going to roll into the year 1978, the year 1978 of Mark Martin's career. But before we do that, again, race fans, make sure to hit Mark Martin POD, markmartinpod.com on the internet. Get all the old episodes, downloads, links, and make sure to subscribe on all of the different players. Give us that 5-star rating. Mark Martin Pod, markmartinpod.com. Also make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Mark Martin Pod. But Mark, we're going to roll into a big year, and I know you're excited about this one, 1978 of your racing career.
Yeah, so we'll follow up on 1977. where we got our first initiation on pavement racing, asphalt racing. Wound up dipping our toe a little bit into ASA and winning the ASA Rookie of the Year, and going from 0 to recognized hot shoe in 1 year. So as the season winds down, as I said before, Ed Howe had offered a new chassis, free new chassis to us. So we had a new car out on the horizon that we were going to put together over the winter. We had plans on running the full ASA circuit to try to win the championship, because that would get us some really good experience and recognition. I had New Smyrna Speed Week set in my sights after our first season down there. I wanted to go down there and race for the championship, and needed to build a new hauler.
That one is driven deep to center.
And I don't know why in the world that I thought that a Ford Cube van would be the right hauler to pull this new trailer that my dad designed or came up with and was having built. But I thought a Ford Cube van was the hot setup. So located a Ford Cube van with a 460 in it. We were not Ford people. My dad was 100% ride or die Chevy guy. So I don't even know how I pulled that off. But as it turns out, it was a mistake. The trailer was built out of steel. It was a massively heavy trailer with quite a bit of storage on the front of it. It was insane how heavy this thing was. We pulled into Springfield with it, the first race of the season, and Danny Ryan was one of Dave Watson's crew guys. And as we pulled in and parked, Dan Ryan says, "Toot toot, here comes the Queen Mary." I mean, it was huge, I'm telling you. So anyway, we get this rig all put together, and
that's in foul ground,
prior to getting that rig out on the road, of course, we had to go get our chassis from Beaverton, Michigan. It's a huge drive from Arkansas, and I had a Dodge van. Man, it was a badass Dodge van with a 440 in it, headers, Holley 4-barrel, wide tires and wheels, fender flares, front spoiler. It was a badass rig, and just a little car trailer that we had. So I hook up the van and the trailer, and this is probably December of '77, and get ready to go by myself all the way up to Beaverton, and I think, man, Rusty, as in Rusty Wallace, out of St. Louis, would love to go to Ed Howe's and see his place, because we're just learning the world. So I called up Rusty. I said, "Hey, Rusty, I'm going to go pick up a new chassis at Howe's. You want to ride up there with me?" He said, "Hell yeah, buddy." So I go through St. Louis, pick up Rusty, and we head off to Beaverton, which was the site of pure embarrassment a year before, and get the chassis, and we head back home. We get down, get over into, I think, Indiana, and it starts snowing, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, and now it's like, I don't know, I'd say it's 11 o'clock at night, Rusty and I in this van, and the snow is starting to drift over the interstate, and it's getting deeper and higher, and finally we come to where the snow has drifted over the highway, probably head high, and it's impassable. And so Rusty and I are like, oh my God, we got to turn this thing around. So Rusty gets out, and we do about a 15-point turn around there on the interstate, which is now down to about one lane wide with all the snow. We get that baby turned around, and we must be the luckiest people on earth, because we go back up the road for a little ways, and we come to a hotel, and it has rooms. Unbelievable. So anyway, we're talking about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. We get a room, crash out, get some sleep, and get up the next morning and head on down. You know, now the roads, they've cleared the roads, and head on down to St. Louis and drop Rusty off, and I go on to Batesville. And, you know, that's just an incredible story in itself. You know, we were just teenagers out here seeing the world, and one of the things you know, we would never think of stopping and sleeping. You know, I mean, it's, you know, oh no, how we do it is we drive straight through. It don't matter 18 hours, whatever it is. It's just how we do it. 20 hours. So, you know, the weather did force us to stop and get a little sleep, but that was a pretty cool story.
Pitch misses for a ball.
So back in Batesville, you know, we're putting this car together, and I decide that I need to find some help with, you know, along with Banjo, who Banjo had the fall of '77. Banjo had gone to the Cincinnati race, and we ran that race, and on the way home we were going to drop him off in St. Louis, and he didn't really want to get dropped off, so brought him home. He moved in with me and was there ever since, a fixture in the program. So I found this guy at the Snowball Derby in '77 that I really seemed to like. His name is Rennie Realbanks, and we talked Rennie into moving from South Carolina to Batesville, moving his family up there, and he was an experienced guy, someone that could really help us. And by May, Larry Shaw had decided to do something different anyway, so Shaw moved on. So Rennie was the adult in the crowd, and we take off chasing our well, first we go to New Smyrna for Speed Weeks, and we run Speed Weeks, and it's an uneventful Speed Weeks for us. We run good. We don't win a race. Like I said before, the competition was insane, but we were very, very good and very consistent, and we did win the title based on consistency. So that was great for us, because, you know, we're really trying to build my name and get recognized, and that was a good way to start off the season. And so we get into the ASA season up there in the Midwest, you know, chasing all those races, and we ran really good, really, really good. It takes us a long time to get a win. But we do really good in the points, and finally we pull off a couple of wins later on in the season. And you know, this is a year where the things that really stand out in my mind are the episodes. You know, you remember now, this is before cell phones, and I'm going to bring you back to that tow truck. These tow trucks were big back then, because not only, you know, we drove day and night in those things, and we all traveled together. Well, we blew up not one, but three of those 460s in that Ford Cube van. Blew the motors up on the side of the road, in the middle of nowhere, you know, and have to walk to somebody's house and knock on the door and ask to borrow a telephone, you know, to get rescued. So that tow truck was a disaster, and it only made it the 1978 season. I had to look into the next really cool, one of the top two coolest haulers I ever had. We built for the 79 season, but that's another story. We had a great year in 78. We used Baker engines out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Really good power, really good reliability. You know, remember I'd used Tampa Joe's motors in 77, and we blew up, our share of motors in 77. So it was great to have a great power plant. We had a great chassis. I was really learning tires, Firestone tires we were running on. I was really learning the compounds. Back then it was open, you could run any compound you wanted. And I was really learning the compounds and the ins and outs of those tires. It was really interesting. That was the year that on the serial number on the tires, it would tell what week that they were built in, the date. And the 51 compound was a softer compound. You couldn't run them a lot of places. They would grain. You could run them on the left some, but you couldn't run them on the right. And I stumbled across some 19th week 51s, and the chemist must have spilled something in that batch accidentally, because these things were as fast as a 51 but wouldn't grain. So you could run those 51s at a lot of places where you usually had to run the 46s and really haul butt. So when I discovered these tires, I called every tire distributor that I could think of or find in the United States, and I bought them all up. Even though I was on a tire deal, I bought these things because they were magic. I also learned that the 20th week 51s were the same way. So I'm hoarding up 19th and 20th week 51s all over the place. I'm still racing out of Batesville, Arkansas, and we decide to do this. Rusty and I decide to travel together and do this big sweep up through, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Toledo, Ohio, someplace in Mount Clemens, Michigan, and then several other ASA races that were sprinkled in there along those things. So it was going to be about a two-week swing. And so I have to, I'm going to take my tires, man. I can't be buying tires off the tire truck, because starting with the 21st week, the 51s went back to the way they were before. So I had this whole mess of 19th and 20th week 51s. So I rented a 24-foot U-Haul truck to put all my tires in and extra equipment since we were going to be going that long. We had to take extra racing fuel and a lot of wheels and a lot of things that wouldn't fit on our trailer. So I load that up. We go through St. Louis, hook up with Rusty. We go to Fort Wayne, Indiana, the first race out, and Rusty wins that thing. Man, he thought he had won the Daytona 500. It was awesome. So we go, all up through all these different places. And one of the things that stands out in my mind was when we went to Mount Clemens, we didn't make any prior arrangements for hotel rooms. And so after the race at Mount Clemens that night, which I don't think Rusty or I either one did any good, Rusty blew up, and I don't think I ran very good. So we leave the racetrack, and heck, we need a place to sleep. and a parking lot to work in the next day to get ready for the next race. So we find this, we see this place called the Georgianian Inn. So we wheel our rigs in there, 3 rigs, the tire, U-Haul, the U-Haul full of tires, and my rig and Rusty's rig, and all us guys. We go inside, see if they got rooms, and sure enough, they do. But this is a fancy place. Didn't look fancy, but they thought they were fancy. They were wearing like tuxedos in there that was working in there and stuff. And this is midnight or after. So we get our rooms. We go, me and Banjo go in, our room and go to bed. And of course, Rusty, because Rusty's a couple years older than me, Rusty and my dad, who was a partier too, and at the time, and well, they go out partying. And that's a long story too. They broke the windshield. They were all piled up in Rusty's hauler, gone out to the clubbing or whatever, and we're driving doing wild stuff on the way back. Some slammed on the brakes, and somebody flew up into the windshield and cracked the windshield of his hauler. So it was all cracked up for the rest of the trip. But anyway, so we get our sleep. Rusty's got to change motors in the morning in the parking lot, and we've got to pack wheel bearings and do all our maintenance on our. So we get up, early in the morning and unload the race